Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. As you can probably tell by my voice, I am still rather under the weather, but needs must, and some Turbo Depths has to be played. This particular Turbo Depths list is a 501 from FaultedForm, who plays lots of cool combo decks and is a very good player, and a donor wanted me to play this list, so kindly donated to make that happen. So here we are. So what is Turbo Depths quickly? Well, if you're watching my channel, you almost certainly know what it is because I play it a lot on my channel and I have a big guide to it on my Patreon. But for those who are new here, Dark Depths makes you a 2020 indestructible flyer when it has no counters on it. Hexmage removes all the counters, so 2-card combo, get 2020. Or you can Thespian stage, copy the Dark Depths. If you have a Thespian stage that becomes a Dark Depths, it won't have any counters on because that's the thing that happens when it enters. Then we just get 2020. Simple as. We got some fast mana to power this out in Lotus Petals and Spirit Guides. We've got some tutors in the form of Sylvan Scrying and Crop Rotation to get there. And then we have this suite of various protection spells that I'll get into in a minute, because that's kind of where this build is a bit more unique. And we have some silver bullets in our land that we can dig out. So we got the Sejiri Steppe to protect our creature. We've got Ghost Quarter to blow up like Wastelands or Caracas. We've got a Boseiju which we can shoot for with Sylvan Scrying to do the similar sort of things, as well as hitting Ensnaring Bridge or any problem permanents like that. And we are a fetch land mana base, which allows us to slightly more easily cast cards like Abrupt Decay out of the sideboard. Abrupt Decay being excellent for blowing up Mages of the Moon, Blood Moon, Opposition Agent, and Ensnaring Bridge. Lots of things that can jam us up. So what's interesting about this list is the protection. So 4 Thoughtseize is basically a staple with this deck and has been for a long time. But the rest is where we kind of get interesting. So I've messed around with Vexing Bauble before on the channel. The first time I tried it out, it felt very good. The second time I went harder into it, but I didn't quite accommodate well enough in the deck, and it didn't feel good. But this build is accommodating it much more nicely. So this is going to stop our opponents from counter-spelling our spells. When we're trying to cast a Crop Rotation, making sure our spells resolve is kind of important, so I really like this. This also stops things like Grief from taking bites of our hand early on. It can stop some combo decks from functioning at all. It's just a very powerful tool. The other new card here is Disruptor Flute. This is a 2-mana flash artifact. As it enters the battlefield, we choose a card name, just like Pithing Needle, and Pithing Needle is something just like Pithing Needle, but it has this extra line of text saying, spells with a chosen name cost 3 more to cast. Now, having a Pithing Needle on Wasteland that costs twice as much isn't ideal, but the making spells cost 3 more is really good, because we can name something like Swords to Plowshares, which is one of the main ways that people will deal with a 2020 once it's in play. And being able to stop Swords to Plowshares, more or less stop, right? It's going to cost them 4 mana. That's a lot of mana they have to hold open to actually just plow our creature. And the Vexing Bauble can keep things like Solitude at bay. So the Disruptor Flute can just completely shut down the things that are going to be really scary against us. So this can act kind of like one of our defensive measures for our creature. So the flexibility of Disruptor Flute is something I'm really interested to see how it pans out. Yes, it costs 1 more than a Pithing Needle, so maybe it slows us down. But I think it's going to be quite a powerful tool that we can leverage, and I'm excited to see how it fares. Sideboard-wise, we've... Oh, sorry, I've also got to mention the Tamiyo Safekeeping. Because we can't really run Not of This World alongside Vexing Bauble, we're running Tamiyo Safekeeping. The good thing about Tamiyo Safekeeping is it can protect our lands as well. So we don't have the 1-mana Pithing Needle for Wasteland to protect us from Wasteland from turn 1. But Tamiyo Safekeeping can do a similar job. So that's pretty good. This protects our creature, gives it hexproof and indestructible. It can also target any permanents, so like I said, we can protect any of our lands. We can also protect like a Vexing Bauble or a Disruptor Flute in a pinch when those are things keeping us in the game. And the 2 life is not irrelevant. Sometimes it comes up and messes your opponent's clock up. This is a card that has kind of been fringe playable in Dark Depths for a while. I've run it here and there. I think with the advent of Vexing Bauble, it's making this more attractive as a main deck card. Like, yes, 1 mana is a lot more than 0, but being able to shut opponents' things down, Vexing Bauble is good. Right, quick go over the sideboard. I've already mentioned the decays. We've got more protection, so Legolas Quick Reflexes is very good against white removal decks. You just say no, because a lot of these white removal decks tend to be blue-white, and they're going to have ways of counterspelling your protection spells, so this just ignores their counterspells. So you need to specifically have 2 removal spells, 1 on their turn when you make your 2020, and then 1 on your turn when you're attacking with it. Veil of Summer to protect us against various things, mainly sort of some hand disruption, but it can also be a Tendrils of Agony being pointed at your face, you can just blank all the copies, which is pretty tasty. Apostle's Blessing, this means that you can get through artifact blockers as well, which is an important tool to have sometimes. I think you could run Tower of the Magistrate here in this slot, but we're going to run the list as it was. And we have 4 Leyline on the Void for Graveyard Hate. A lot of Graveyard decks at the moment, and just shutting them down hard is good. Because we normally can win the game with our opening hand, because we're a dedicated linear combo deck, it means that having a dead draw like Leyline on the Void in the deck isn't as bad, because our hand should just do the thing it does. Mainly, the thing that we'd be looking for might be a land or something, but we're going to keep a hand that has our game plan for the most part. Alright, I think I'm done going over this one. Remember to like and subscribe, check out the Patreon if you like this deck, the link is in the description, and let's power through this cold and power up some 2020s. Our opening hand for round 1 is a little bit of a clunky one. We don't have any permanent mana sources, so I don't think we can keep this one at all. Not necessarily that you want to, we have lots of like 4 to 5 card hands that win the game anyway, so you should be mulliganing always and often with this deck. Okay, so this will give us a Vexing Bauble, and then it gets a little tricky from here, right? Because we only have the 1 green source, so this does make things kind of awkward. If we throw back the Sejiri Steppe, we go like turn 1, play this Vexing Bauble, turn 2, we can play out the Lotus Petal, play a Sylvan Scrying, and go and get like Dark Depths, and then we're looking for a black source or a green source. That's kind of awkward. Alternatively, we go Vexing Bauble turn 1. Obviously, we play the Lotus Petal before the Bauble. Then turn 2, we go Sylvan Scrying for a Bayou. And then we can cast the Sylvan Scrying on turn 3. And then make a turn 4. An attack on turn 5 with a 2020. That's just too slow for Legacy. Let's mulligan. Alright, now this is something I'm happy to jam with. Our opponent has mulligan quite a lot too, which makes me want to keep the... Alright, so these three cards over here is a combo. That is our 2020. So we get to keep 2 more of these cards. I think keeping the Thoughtseize makes a lot of sense here. I don't think we get to keep the Tamiyo Safekeeping here. Do we keep a Spirit Guide here so that we can cast a green spell if we find it? Or do we keep the Crop Rotation because that's the best green spell we might want to cast? That is certainly a choice. I think we put back the Crop Rotation just make sure we have access to green mana in case we need it. Because we can draw other green spells here. Now, if our opponent just turn 1s us with something spooky, then fair enough. A Misty Rainforest. Okay. A basic island. And a ponder. So this could be some sort of storm-based combo deck, like Ad Nauseam Tendrils type jam. But with an island in, it's not going to be the Epic Storm specifically, because that doesn't run any basics. We could be looking at some kind of Sneak and Show deck as well. That'll be another option. An Elvish Spirit Guide. Wish kept the Crop Rotation, but if we'd have kept the Crop Rotation, we would have drawn another Crop Rotation. That's how the world works sometimes. I think because our opponent could be some sort of combo deck, we are incentivized to Thoughtseize them now, because otherwise they could just show and tell in a big monster and we lose. A Daze. Ooh. Hello, Elvish Spirit Guide. Happy to have you. An Orcish Bowmasters, a Reanimate. Neither of these cards are great right now, but the upside of Reanimate is quite large if they can entomb something spooky. So I think we're going to chuck this Reanimate in the bin and hope our opponent doesn't draw a Wasteland, really. There is a Polluted Delta. They are cracking their Polluted Delta. They did keep the card with Ponder, so I did want one of the cards there. So hopefully by taking the Reanimate, we've kind of shafted the plan they were going for. A Thespian Stage. That makes a choice to play out a Thespian Stage rather than Dark Depths very easy here, because we can take a Wasteland hit on the Thespian Stage. I was kind of hoping they would play out the island, so that we could then surprise copy their basic if they tried to Wasteland our stage. There's the island. Okay, so no Wasteland. Tamiyo's Safekeeping would be the best draw here, I think. Right, our opponent didn't play anything, but they've got this Orcish Bowmaster we know about. Right, so I'll play out this Dark Depths, and in our opponent's upkeep, I will make this. Here comes the Bowmaster. There it is. So Bowmaster has been very good for Dark Depths as an archetype, this existing in the meta, because nobody's playing like the 2-mana 1/1 guys that draw a card, like Icefang Coatl or the Owl Baleful Strix, is it? Or Tidehollow Strix? I can never remember which one it is. You know the one I mean, though. Alright, let's make a 20/20 in our opponent's upkeep. If this goes really wrong, we do have the combo sewn up for a second time here. So they need to find their Brazen Borrower. They usually have one copy in the deck, in the main. A Grief. Our opponent just wants to see our hand here and get some more information. That's what I'm reading this as. But I could be mistaken. So they'll take the Elvish Spirit Guide here. So they have the Brazen Borrower here. They are in a favoured position from here. I'm hoping this is just to see our hand and get some more information. Oh, they took the Scrying. I suppose if we draw another green source, then that lets us go anyway. Don't do it to me. Colossal Skytail. Okay, our opponent is on a very different sort of deck here. Yikes. Okay, so they've probably got more ways of interacting than I first thought. Wowzers, trousers. Big turtle coming in huge there. A Vexing Bauble, you say? Right, in comes the Thespian stage. In comes the Bauble. This is probably going to be a thing that redraws us now, because we are somewhat floundering over here. Redrawing does increase our opponent's clock, though. So maybe we hold off for a turn or two until we have to go for it. Or not until we super have to go for it, but when the window becomes narrower. A Hexmage. Am I just playing out a Hexmage here? This does hold off our opponent's attacks for a while, but a second Bowmasters becomes very bad news for us here. I suppose we could crack this. If we find a Dark Depths, we can just make our Hexmage. But if we crack this, we obviously have to worry about Bowmaster stuff. Yeah, this is a little bit of a tight one. Because we already have the stage, I think we're okay just to play this out, because we have another route to the combo if we find it anyway. This can hold off our opponent's attacks, potentially. Our opponent is just drawing blank off the top, like they have been since the turn after they pondered. They've just been drawing random cards. The Colossal Sky Turtle is really cool tech, though. You can just use this to bounce something, and then, you know, this is a fine thing to reanimate. Flying, Ward 2, 6/5. Alright, our opponent's doing some attacks. This smells like a Orcish Bowmasters, which makes the Vexing Bauble worse to crack for sure. So block here. If they play another Bowmasters and ping this, alright, they're just letting us take out the Bowmasters. This frees up our Vexing Bauble now. Okay. If our opponent's in a situation where they want to push damage that badly, that's not the worst for us. It means they've got the fear of big old Marit Lage. And if you can't fear a 20/20 flying indestructible, then what can you fear at the end of the day? Okay. A green source, you say? I don't really want to just crack this Bauble into a potential Bowmasters, so I'm just going to pass here. I could start attacking, but I think we're probably playing defensive for now. If our opponent taps out of Orcish Bowmasters mana, then I'm probably tempted to crack the Bauble, just because we do need cards to get where we're going. And our opponent is operating on very low resources right now. Alright. What is this? A Colossal Sky Turtle bringing back the Reanimate. Let's draw a card. A Boseiju. Crack this. Get ourselves a basic forest here. You know what card types Colossal Sky Turtle is? Enchantments. You know what Boseiju kills? Enchantments. We do need to pay for the Ward 2 on it. But they could also just go and get back this Bowmasters and ping down our Hexmage. But that leaves them with just a Bowmasters, because we can strip the counters from this. They won't get the trigger from pinging this, because it won't be around anymore. So they'll be left with just a 1/1. So they're kind of in a similar position that they are now, except they would have lost 2 life, and they have a Bowmasters instead of an Orc Army. So it's kind of a wash, really. But we can use the Spirit Guide, which will give us enough to pay through the Skytel and blow it up. A Reanimate. They're going for the Bowmasters line. Okay. So this is going to ping our Hexmage. We respond. Remove all the counters from this. This will die because it's a 0/0 with counters on. They don't get this trigger. They don't get a 1/1. And now we get to keep our Boseiju if that's a thing we need. Die Depths, please. You can't have everything, can you? Do I just want to play an Elvish Spirit Guide? I think I do. This keeps our opponent at bay. I do like the Colossal Sky Turtle as a card. I think it's really cool. I dislike it in Rhinos, but I just dislike the Rhinos deck. But I think as a card it's pretty cool. I like turtles. Hopefully I'm not rambling too much delirious nonsense at you with my cold, but we'll see. Alright. We've blunted our opponent's attack. So we might start attacking now, because if we reduce our opponent's life total, it makes Reanimate an increasingly bad draw. Our opponent's got one card in hand. I don't really want to fire off a Thoughtseize here. If our opponent's got Bowmasters, they're going to get us at some point anyway. So, 8-turn clock versus 11-turn clock. I'm no maths wizard, but that sounds alright to me. It's obviously a lot easier for our opponent to add more power for incremental attacks than it is for us, because we don't really do incremental attacks. We do big chunks for 20 most of the time. I would like to copy this forest. This means our Thespian stage is a basic for now. It just makes it harder for our opponent to interact with it. Obviously, when we turn it into a Dark Depths, it can become wastelandable again, but that is a problem for later. So now we're going to save this Thoughtseize if we need to resolve a cantrip later on. Our Bowmasters. Yep, this was something that we thought might happen here. Yep, so going for trade here. So now they've got a 5-turn clock. So we will need to find one of our 7 shooters left in the deck, or one of our 3 copies of Dark Depths. So that's 10 cards in our deck. And we have 44 cards in library. So we're relatively live to hit it before our opponent kills us, I would say. And we can draw some other things that can interact with the board, like just playing a Spirit Guide or a Hexmage. Alternatively, we could draw another Thespian stage. Always exciting. We are just going to keep playing our lands out, though, because we don't have any way of shuffling them back in or making use of them being in our hand. We may as well have more mana. It allows us to play around more things, like soft permission. It allows us to rebuild for another attempt at the combo if we need to as well. Alright. Orcish Bowmasters attacking me. We're at 6. A Ponder. Another thing I like about the Colossal Sky Turtle, actually, is the flexibility on it is really interesting. Like, if your opponent scams like important cards out of your hand, then you can just get them back. Right, let's have another forest here. See if they want to fire off a wasteland. We have loads of mana, so we can Boseiju when the time is right, rather than just snapping one off immediately. Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Is this going to be one of the games where 2 life is going to win the game for us? It could be. But we do need to draw something next turn. So this is going to put us to 4. If we Thoughtseize, that puts us to 2. We need to make a 20/20, gain 2 life, go back up to 4. So this is kind of the big turn. Animate dead on a Colossal Sky Turtle. That's fine by me. Do I Boseiju this now? No, I think so. We have the Tamiyo Safekeeping to protect us when we try and combo anyway. Alright, let's blow up the Animate dead rather than the Sky Turtle. I don't believe our opponent will have another basic in their deck. If we draw a Dark Depths this turn, I think we can win the game. If we draw a Tutor this turn, I think we can win the game. It does depend slightly on what's in our opponent's hand. A Ghost Quarter. Okay, we can play this Ghost Quarter. Yeah, so they found a non-basic, which you can find off of the Boseiju. But I was curious to see if they would fetch a basic or not, if they had the option. I don't believe they have any more basics, though. So this is going to put us to 2. We don't get to Thoughtseize first now. Okay. Let's draw our final card of this game. Do we win the game or not? That's pretty much what this card determines. Depending on what's in our opponent's hand, obviously. A Vexing Bauble. If we sack this, we draw 2 cards. Sorry, we draw a card, we get 2 pings. We can give ourselves hexproof. Oh, sorry, we can't give ourselves hexproof, but we gain 2 life. So we'd still be at 2. We find a Marit Lage. So if we find... Yeah, this does technically work. It's not great. Alright. So I get to see the card before I decide if I show them that we're running the Safekeeping here. A Crop Rotation. Okay, this does it, in theory, and we can win this game on 1 life, depending on what's in our opponent's hand. Okay. So I'm going to Ghost Quarter this wasteland. Just trying to think. Yes, I'm going to Crop Rotate this swamp away. They got a counterspell here. This is like a high cast Force of Will. Yeah, so we were a couple of turns too late there, really. All right. So our opponent's got some reanimate stuff, so I'm kind of inclined to be mindful of that. Disruptor Flute can stop the activated abilities of the Colossal Sky Turtle, so that's handy to know. All of these cards here have some merit. We are definitely not boarding in 10 cards in a matchup like this, though. Sejiri Steppe does protect from Colossal Sky Turtle because it is a coloured card still. So I don't think any of those going. Our opponent's running Griefs, they're running Dazes, they're running Force of Wills. The Bauble, sorry, looks good here. I do like Thoughtseize as an option too. Like, Disruptor Flute seems really good here as well. I think if we're sideboarding here, it's probably got to be some amount of our fast mana. I don't think we can afford to have these kicking around. Do we want Legolas's quick reflexes? Or do we want some Leyline in the Void stuff? I think we can probably grind through a lot of the regular scam stuff, if I'm being perfectly honest here. Let's trim a couple of these petals and smash a couple of these in. Like, they haven't shown us Entomb. It looks like they're just playing, like, value Simic stuff, which feels like I'm not trying to stop them getting in, like, an Archon of Cruelty type jazz. So I just think having a couple more defensive pieces to stop, like, Sky Turtle type shenanigans feels useful. Like, Veil of Summer is good to stop some of the hand disruption here. But I think it's more important for us to take out specific pieces from our opponent's hand and check the coast is clear if we don't have a bauble sort of thing. And obviously crop rotation doesn't feel amazing against counterspell decks, but crop rotation is such a key part of our deck, there's not a thing we get to remove. We could board in the Veil of Summers here, because Elvish Spirit Guide allows us to Veil on turn 1, which is pretty cool. If we need to, I might try a couple of Veils here. See how it feels. This hand does go, but it's not great. So this is like a turn 4-ish, turn 3. I think we can do better than this. I'm going to mulligan. This doesn't have access to a Dark Depths at all. Okay, this has access to a Dark Depths. Leaves us wanting for some other things, though. I don't think we can go to 5. So we've got 16 cards that go with this to just win us the game. I think that is pretty acceptable. I will keep this. I'm inclined to ditch Spirit Guides here. Oh, we don't really want the card disadvantage. We've already mulliganed so much. Our opponent said they have a fledgling channel that they're doing themselves called The Flooded Strand. So if you're interested in pre-modern, by all means check it out. Always happy to plug other creators. Love Magic the Gathering. And pre-modern is close enough to Legacy in some respects. It plays all the old classic cards, so I don't mind plugging that. Alright. Let's get our head back in this game. Okay, our opponent is a Wasteland deck, but I don't think we can afford to play around it here. Why is that so tiny? Let's make that bigger. Let's get a Bayou here and Thoughtseize our opponent. Our opponent's deck is cool. What do I feel about what's happening over there? Not a big fan of the old Colossal Sky Turtle. I don't care about being Grief because my hand is bad. Brainstorm is obviously a pretty potent card here. Currency Converter is good with all the Colossal Sky Turtle stuff going on as well. Don't really care about that one too much. 2 life off the Witherbloom command isn't nothing though. I think I'm going to take the... Did I take the Ponder or did I take the Sky Turtle? It's kind of close here. Like, if we don't take the Sky Turtle now, we might regret it later because we can't guarantee there's reflexes in our hand. So I'm going to take the Sky Turtle. If they immediately reanimate us, or reanimate their own creature, then that's going to suck. Alright, an Underground Sea off of the Polluted Delta that we knew they had. And then there's the Currency Converter. I don't think they're going to grief us here. No. A Vexing Bauble. I will play this Vexing Bauble. Play Bojuka Bog. And just get rid of our opponent's Sky Turtle now. We want the mana in play to use as time goes on. Alright, I found the second land. Cracking the Polluted Delta. This means if they gain 2 life with a Witherbloom command, it doesn't matter now, which is something. They can just Witherbloom command and blow this up. Yep, that's fair enough. Right, we're seeing a Psychic Frog. Right, so put a land back in their hand as well. A Dark Depths. Well, we play it out, so if we draw the other half of our combo next turn, we can do that. So we've got a Hexmage available, we've got other stuff going on. So we've got 8 draws that are things that can win us the game. And we've got 8 tutors, which can do some work for us too. There's a Ponder. There's a Wasteland. They could just snap this off on our Dark Depths right now. They're not going to, though. A Disruptor Flute. Okay. That can name Wasteland. And they'll crack off the Dark Depths in response. Let's get a Disruptor Flute going. Like if our opponent has enough time to beat us down with these currency converter tokens, then we were always going to lose to that at the end of the day, because our deck is going to lose for us. Which is sometimes what happens when you play linear A plus B combo decks. Like, you're odds on to have your combo within a couple of turns in every game. But odds aren't 100%, so sometimes it just doesn't come together, which is kind of where we're at right now. I have been playing an additional 2 tutors in some of my builds lately, just to give that slight extra pinch of reliability, as well as the fact that Elvish Reclaimer is just a 1-card assemble your combo piece, and also is excellent against people trying to reanimate stuff like a little bit slower than the full-on reanimator decks. So like Rescaminator style decks where they need to 2-turn their thing. So turn 1 they'll be cycling their thing away or entombing, and then turn 2 is when they actually get it. So an elf on the play allows you to do a lot by getting Bojuka Bog instant speed when you need. So our opponent can hardcast a Grief if they want. Petty Theft on the Disruptor Flute. Sure. They're going to snap off this Wasteland now? They are. That's fine by me too. That Petty Theft is also not being pointed at our Lord and Saviour, Marit Lage. Right, we've got Ponder going on here too. Need to be a little bit wary of our clocks here. We're both similar time. It's not like one of us is playing slowly or anything. We're both playing at similar pace. But it's just been a lot of stuff going on, which is not really what you expect from a Turbo Depths deck. Sylvan Scrying, you say? I will do some scrying. We don't really have an option to play around days and things here, because we don't have lands to tap for mana. And the longer we wait, the more our opponent fixes. Alright, we got a Hymn to Turek out of it. I don't want to play this Dark Depths out into Wastelands. Like, it's not great if our green source gets Wastelanded either, to be honest. But I'd rather get this Disruptor Flute down again before playing the Dark Depths. It does mean that if we draw one of our combo pieces next turn, we've delayed ourselves slightly, but we're not under... I was going to say we're not under a lot of pressure, but... hello, pressure. We are under you. Right, so cycling a troll here. We can just F6 actually and save a bit of clock. We are ahead on time, but our opponent is ahead in games, which is probably going to be enough considering our opponent has a very quick clock in play right now. Well, if they can draw the cards and do this, but this can grow pretty gross fashion. Are we playing around days here, is the question. I don't know if we can afford to. Just jam this flute. Our opponent's last card is exactly days. Feels like they're going to let this resolve, and that's why they've tapped the currency converter there. Right, we'll name Wasteland here. This means we can play this out, and if we draw either part of our combo, then we can go next turn. Although we're kind of incentivized to wait one more turn, just so we can have the quick reflexes ready to go. So I don't really know what our opponent's had in hand since there's been brainstorms and stuff going on now. Drawing a card, discarding a card. There's a Misty Rainforest. How much damage is our opponent going to put into our face? Is it going to be just 3 or are they going to pump the frog? Right, just the 3. But this draws an extra card. And cards mean more damages later on. A swamp. It's not where I want to be, is it? Right, we'll play out this Verdant Catacombs and pass. Fortunately, they don't have the mana to deploy this Brazen Borrower this turn. A Bowmasters, sure. That is worth 1 more point of damage per turn than pitching it to this, so it makes sense to play it out. I'm not going to start manually removing counters. It's a waste of our time and our opponents. It is, strictly speaking, optimal to remove those counters, but like I said, I'm not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if they do any pump here. So we're almost certainly dead. Brainstorm. Wow, this has just been one of those games, really. We mulliganed to 5. We had 16 cards to find. We found one of them, and it got countered. A little bit awkward. But I've taken 2 hits from the frog now. That's normally enough card advantage to get game 1. When all your spells are so efficient with great selection. So if we can find the Marit Lage this turn, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4. We block this. Then I have 4 cards in hand. So this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they play this as well, actually. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can't crack this fetch to thin. Well, this might cost us having this. Sylvan Scrying. So we cast Scrying with this. We get the Thespian stage. We play the Thespian stage. We don't have enough mana to activate it. Yeah, we're just done here. That was unfortunate. Wow, that was very much the fail rate of our deck. Unfortunate. Maybe we're supposed to go to 4. Alright, let's go to round 2. Our opponent showed us a couple of turtles at the end, but that wouldn't have beaten what we had going because of the quick reflexes in our hand. Well, this hand is an odd-looking one, but it does work. So we can play Bauble on 1. Turn 2, we can play Flute. Turn 3, we make a 20/20. 2 pieces of disruption along the way. And if we need to, we've got this Ghost Quarter and a couple of draw steps worth of stuff. Playing a Nexus, so probably looking at a Cloud Poster. Okay, if our opponent is playing Vexing Bauble, I don't think I want to be playing Vexing Bauble myself. A Thoughtseize. It's not a thing we get to really do a lot with. Okay, we will play out a Vexing Bauble because this allows us to at least draw a card down the line. The one downside of us playing this Bauble out right now is if we draw exactly Lotus Petal next turn. So if we drew exactly Lotus Petal, we could play this and we'd have 2 fast mana, we can just make a 20/20. Which means we're definitely going to draw that now. This Ghost Quarter can be useful. I'm very worried about sowing Mycospawn here. A Yavimaya. Oh, thank you. Do like green mana. Crop Rotation. Okay. This is going to be for a Cloud Post or a Urza's Tower, I would imagine. This is Urza's Tower into Mycospawn. That is gross. And so this is going to get a Wasteland or get them more mana ramp. Either way, it's miserable for us, really. Apologies if you caught some of my cough there. I think I'll try to edit it out. Okay, they've just gone for more ramp. That's not the end of the world for us. Not great, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? A Crop Rotation. What are we doing here? I could Ghost Quarter their Planar Nexus. That cuts them off of more green mana. Well, does it? They're going to get Forest, probably. So it won't cut them off the green mana for that. But it will turn these into only tapping for 1 mana, which is kind of a big deal. But that reduces the amount of lands we have. And it slows our clock down considerably. I think the play we want to make here is Disruptor Flute. It's either for Wasteland or so Mycospawn. So this is 6, 7 mana here. Or 6 if they're just going to do this. I think we have to sow Mycospawn here. Do the upkeep. This means they need exactly Urza's Tower to cast a Sowing Mycospawn. Turn 2 Mycospawn is gross. It's alright, opponent. You can have your Bauble. Sowing Mycospawn. Like, a single Wasteland, we can crop rotate our way around that. And that's not the end of the world for us. It's not ideal, but I can live with that. Turn 2, Sowing Mycospawn on the play. 6 mana over there. Khan the Great Creator. How do we go about beating Khan the Great Creator right now? That is a question for next turn, I guess. Yeah, these Cloud Post decks are... So Cloud Post used to be a very, very easy matchup for Turbo Depths because they were just so slow and didn't really interact with us that much. But now, you know, they've got this Planar Nexus, which also gives them this towers to do stuff with. And they have the Mycospawn, which just, like you see, you can play this on turn 2 and then turn 3 it's just like, you know, they can double Wasteland you on turn 3. It's pretty terrifying. How the times have changed. Okay, so we're going to take 3 from this. We've got a Mycosynth Lattice coming in. We're probably going to have to do something about that. A Verdant Catacombs. So we can play this and Thoughtseize our opponent. So we can play this out. If our opponent just plays the Lattice, and that's what they spend all their mana on, we can throw a 20/20 into play and hope that's good enough. Let's just do some quick math. So we have 3 lands out. If we tap this for black, we didn't get tapped for black, do we? We tap this for colourless. We crop rotate away for an Urborg. So we have 1 black from this and the colourless floating. That makes our 20/20. Then we have the Urborg left over to Thoughtseize our opponent. But then they get a card activation with our Marit Lage already in play. What could they do to our Marit Lage with any artifact in Magic the Gathering? There's definitely going to be some stuff that would beat that. I think the play here is to... oh, this is really tough. If we play this and Thoughtseize our opponent... oh, yikes. So we can Thoughtseize our opponent, just take this Lattice. Then our opponent gets an Ensnaring Bridge. They sit behind it, then we die. That doesn't sound very good. So I think the plan is probably to make them go all in on the Lattice, not have another mana source, so they couldn't get Ensnaring Bridge if they wanted to. But the issue is they'll play this first. In response, we make a Marit Lage. Then they activate the Karn, and they're going to have 2 to potentially, what? 2 to 5 mana is the max they can have next turn to interact with our Marit Lage token. So Ensnaring Bridge will do that, and then we're going to have to try and find... yeah, I think we're supposed to Thoughtseize away here. Oh dear. Alright, let's take a peek. And Urborg. How much mana have they got? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So any land gives them Urborg. That guy is absolutely ceaseless in his hunger. Okay. Huh. Okay, so we take the Lattice. I think we just have to do that. So if we Ghost Quarter this away, we deny them 2 mana, which means they can't Urborg. So they have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana. Oh, I don't like it, but I think that's the play that's been laid out for us. Let's deny them 2 mana. Do I want to play out this Vexing Bauble? No. So we do have an emergency crop rotation if we need it for something. But things are getting tricky. Well, things got tricky immediately when they just immediately sang Myco Spawn on turn 2. Right, we're going to get the Myco Spawn in our business. There it is. Then you go digging for something we can't. They are indeed. What horrors beyond my wildest comprehension are about to... okay, just an expedition map. That is certainly more beatable, I hope, than the Ensnaring Bridge. So they could go and get an Eye of Ugin. They get a Cloud Post. Cloud Post is pretty good. Okay, they get an Eye of Ugin. Oh, and they had a Cloud Post. I see. I see. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9. They have lots. The number I've counted here is lots. However, we can beat this. If they tap out this Urborg, they target our permanents, then we just make a 20/20. And that should be good enough. This has been quite the game here. Now, our opponent could draw another Song Myco Spawn and jam us up in a different way. There is the eye. Are you just tutoring for a Myco Spawn here? Or are they going for the Urborg? They are going for the Urborg. They're going to target 2 of my permanents. We have to hope that the 1 mystery card in their hand somehow doesn't do anything here. Alright, opponent. I have a response to your ability. If they draw a crop rotation here and just crop rotate Caracas, then... whatever. Sometimes you have ill. I think we've done pretty well to navigate to this point. 10-10, pretty scary. You know what's bigger? A 20/20 with flying. Please don't tell me you've drawn a crop rotation. They can have a Song Myco Spawn here. That's very good. They can just search for the Caracas that way. So they've got 6 potential cards in their deck. Alright. Wow. That was not an easy game of Magic the Gathering. Alright, Vexing Baubles. we're not about you. What does look good here? Well, we definitely don't want ley lines. We definitely don't need veils. So we can ignore those. Disruptor Flute looks very good here. Big fan of having that one. We don't need the Bojuka Bogs. That frees up another slot. Abrupt Decay can blow up some things our opponent has. Not enough of them, but it blows up some of them. Legolas' quick reflex can be removal. I don't think our opponent's going to be targeting our Marit Lage very often. Do I think they're going to have some artifact flyers? Possibly. The flyer they might have is Null Drifter, which Apostle's Blessing doesn't help us get through. But Legolas' quick reflexes does. So I think on that merit, I'm going to take this. So the Abrupt Decays can deal with our opponents' like Disruptor Flutes of their own, as well as things like Ensnaring Bridge. So I think I'm going to go with this sort of configuration. Oh, that was a lot, that game. Okay. I'm down to clown with this. Vampire Hexmage, very good at killing Khan. So I think we go turn 1, stage scrying for Urborg. Maybe our opponent will play Yavimaya and help us out. Alright, they've got a Cloud Post on the play. And a Once Upon a Time. Another Cloud Post. Understood, opponent. You want lots of mana. Sounds like a nice place to be. Let's see what we draw and see if it changes our plan here. Another Sylvan Scrying. So we have two options here. If we play out the stage and go and get Sylvan Scrying for something like an Urborg, then on the next turn we can play a Hexmage and just have a little bit of protection against a Khan. Alternatively, we play out the Thespian stage, do nothing else. If we draw a piece of fast mana, we can make the Thespian stage kill. If we play out the Dark Depths, we leave that line open as well as just drawing an Urborg to get the Hexmage, or a crop rotation to then sacrifice a land into an Urborg and then Hexmage. So I think the correct play here is play Dark Depths and pass. This gives us the most draws to make a 2020 next turn. And we are under the gun. Our opponent's deck is very quick now. Cloud Post used to be quite a slow lumbering deck that would eventually go over the top of other people. Now it's a deck that you need to interact with often and in a strong fashion, otherwise it will run you over completely quite early on now. So Mike Spawn, unbelievable card, and the fact they get this new synergy with the Urza's Tower is pretty bananas. Alright, deck, what do you got for us? Piece of fast mana or an Urborg, please. An Urborg would be the best. Ooh. That is one of the things I asked for, that I have specifically played towards as well. So we don't get to... There's no way here that we can make a 2020 and hold up the quick reflexes, right? Because if we burn this and this for a Sylvan Scrying for the Urborg to play this, we have no mana for this. So I think the play here is to do this. Hope our opponent doesn't do anything that we have to care about. And try and win the game. So they've got 4 mana over there right now. Something like a Sowing Micro Spawn would be really irritating. If they stack the triggers, actually I suppose they would need a Spirit Guide to do this. But if they had a Micro Spawn that they could kick, that'd be pretty scary. Alright, and they're going to play a Khan here. I imagine our opponent feels somewhat fearful of what we can deploy. Alright, 6 mana now. They got Spirit Guide. If they have a Micro Spawn, they have to stack the triggers the correct way, otherwise we can beat it. Khan the Great Creator. Right, I will crack this for black mana, I suppose. We sack it for green and see what our opponent does here. So they're probably just going to pass unless they have a plan that's 2 mana. So if it's like a Disruptor Flute, it doesn't have split seconds or anything. So we can make this, and once we've already put the ability on the stack, they can't stop it. And if they play it, when we just do it in response anyway. So we're going to let them get the card and hopefully invest some mana into it. And then we can try and win. A Microsynth Lattice. Alright, they're just going to try and get us next turn, are they? Alright, they have 2 mana floating. Not super happy about that one. But we've got what we've got. Please don't kill me, opponent. And by me, I mean Marit Lage. My spirit animal. What deals with Marit Lage for 2 colourless mana? I'd hope that there's nothing that deals with it for 2 colourless mana, because that'd be a bit good to deal with a 2020 Indestructible Flyer. Oh, they're paying costs. What is this? Kozilek's Command. That is the thing, isn't it? Oh, no. Yikes. Well, we did everything in our power there. Let's concede that one. Why did it have to be the Lotus Petal we drew? If it was another Spirit Guide, we would have been A-okay. Okay, so quick Reflexes versus Apostle's Blessing. This doesn't protect from Kozilek's Command. Okay. Do I want these over something like Abrupt Decay? So we've got 3, 4 of these already. 5 of these to protect against Kozilek's Command is probably enough. Oh, it's impossible to do. It's possible to do everything right and still lose. That is Magic the Gathering. No, this isn't for me. Okay. Okay. I will keep this one. One of these cards got to go. So, what this hand does is we make a turn 1 Thespian stage. Turn 2, we can make a 20/20 if we draw any fast mana. If we play our Dark Depths out first, then there's no single draw that lets us go off on turn 2 with this hand because there's no Urborg or Hexmage. We haven't got half of it. So the correct play here is the Thespian stage. And I don't think we waste this Spirit Guide when we might need the fast mana to go. I did write an article all about sequencing lands and how you need to sequence your plays with this deck, which I incorporated into the primer on my Patreon, so by all means check that one out. Okay. Oh. Did they not have anything off that Once Upon a Time? I will take that. Piece of fast mana, please. Oh my god. A Lotus Petal. A Dark Depths. And I'll pass. They're going to do Karn. They won't have any mana left over this time, though. I like our spot. Planar Nexus. The One Ring. Ugh. Not a fan of that. So we throw all of our permanents away to make a 20/20, which will now be naked in the face of our opponent drawing a bunch of cards. We can't attack them next turn. This allows them to draw... Yeah, this allows them to draw things like Wasteland, things like Caracas. Well, this is resolving. That's a given. Why couldn't it be Karn? Okay, so they're going to draw a card from the One Ring. So we need to... If we make a 20/20 this turn in the end step, we have to survive a whole turn cycle. What can deal with it? Kozilek's Command is the thing we have to worry about. The one of Caracas. And if we don't, we have to worry about Wastelands. I think we take on the draw step and see if we can find something like a Tamiyo Safekeeping or a Legolas Reflexes. Alternatively, find absolutely nothing. We do have the ability to go again, though, which isn't the worst. Okay, so our opponent is on notice that we can make a 20/20 now. We can't hide that fact from our opponent. Right, drawing some more cards. Another tower, many manas. Who needs Clown Posts when you just have tri-lands? Or trio lands, I guess. Tri-lands are tricolours, I suppose. Another copy of the One Ring. I'm surprised they didn't keep the one with more counters on. They still get the the triggered ability. Ah, dear, oh dear. This is a lot. I think I'm going to crack our Verdant Catacombs. We don't have any way to force through this damage. Our opponent's also showing a Kozilek's Command over there, which I don't want to play into just yet. So let's just get the Bayou here. We may as well. Our opponent's not going to be messing with that land. They're going to be messing with our other lands. A Crop Rotation. Now, this doesn't protect us against Kozilek's Command, which is somewhat frustrating. This does give us, like, a Ghost Quarter to try and take out one of our opponent's things, so we need to do that in our opponent's main phase. So I'll play out this forest, and I will pass. So our opponent leaves up the mana to Kozilek's command, like off of one Urza's tower. In their main phase, we will then Ghost Quarter that Urza's tower. And then when we go to the end step, they won't have colourless. And that's how we're going to try and win this game. Alright, the One Ring chips them down a little bit more, but I don't think they care about that. Drawing some cards with a One Ring. Another Urza's tower. That's a lot of mana you've got there, opponent. Spend it all, but on something that I don't care about. That would be the ideal. Khan the Great Creator. So we have this mana here to make this. That still gives us a crop rotation. We don't need to pop this Lotus Petal right now. The Lattice. If they play this Lattice, they are just dead to the 2020 that's on board. So they can't play that this turn. But we can't play into this Kozilek's command. And the Sejiri Steppe doesn't protect us from Kozilek's command. And then next turn, they can just play the Lattice whilst holding up the command. Oh, this Cloudpost deck got so many upgrades when it comes to trying to beat us. Is there anything I can do here? If we make the 2020 into a Kozilek's command, we die. If they don't have the Kozilek's command, then we just win. But I don't think we can afford to play into our opponent bluffing here. I think we just have to let our opponent go to cleanup. Like, why wouldn't they just jam their Lattice if that's the best? I guess because they have to bluff something here. But we can Sylvan Scrying for a Boseiju. Then we can make our Marit Lage. We can't quite make the Marit Lage and then do the 1 mana Boseiju, can we? We need to draw an Urborg or a Yavimaya here, I think. We need to turn the Dark Depths into a mana-producing land. That's our best out here. If our opponent's got multiple Kozilek's command, then this is going to be a tough one. Hexmage without the second black mana to cast it. We could go and just tutor for... We could tutor... Oh, we got some interesting options here. So we've got the crop rotation and we've got the Sylvan Scrying here. So if we crop rotation for a Ghost Quarter, blow up this Planar Nexus, all of a sudden our opponent's got a lot less mana here. They'll have 3 colourless mana or 2 colourless and a green to work with. Chances are they're going to have some more Planar Nexuses though. This is a really tough turn. The Sylvan Scrying. If we want the Urborg, we probably need to... If we crop rot for Urborg, then we can play black here, play Hexmage, threaten to kill this. And then what happens? We have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. So we can activate this. So we play this. So we have 3 mana here, plus the Spirit Guides. That's 4 mana, plus the Lotus Petal if we kill this. So we could get the Urborg, play this, get the Ghost Quarter. I think the Ghost Quarter is just better though, right? If we just get the Ghost Quarter here, take the Planar Nexus out, that kind of stunts our opponent's growth a fair bit. Is that better than... So I think we tap this and green here. This Sylvan Scryings. This gets us the Boseiju. And then we make this, make our 2020 here. Blow up the Mycosynth Lattice. I think that's our best line here. Alternatively, we crop rot for an Urborg. So that gives us 3 mana left over plus the Spirit Guide. So 2 mana goes straight into... No, it has to be Yavimaya, wouldn't it? No, we don't have to be Yavimaya because we use this for the thing. So we get Urborg. Then we have the Hexmage, which can threaten the Khan. I don't think we can just shut our opponent off lots of mana. I think the chance of them having another Planar Nexus after drawing more cards or a crop rot or something is going to be too high. This is a really tough turn. Okay, I think we're going to go for a crop rot. Go and get ourselves an Urborg. Deploy the Hexmage. So we have 2 ways of doing this. This can remove all the counters here, which turns this back on and gives us the mana to then make the 2020. Oh, this turn is hard. Wish I was at full brain power and not ill mode. That'd be quite a nice one to dig into. There's also time on our clock. We spent like a minute and a half just on that turn. I was not expecting lots of grinding games of Magic tonight. But here we are. They're going to Kozilek's command at end step here. Feels like they might. That's probably the only instant in their deck outside of Once Upon a Time, right? Disruptor Flute, that's kind of an instant. Kozilek's Command. They're going to make some guys. I think we nail the Khan here. Our opponent's drawing some cards. A Glimmer Post. So only gains them 2. They got some mana over there. Oh no, green mana. That's never good for us. All their green spells are like catastrophic. I think we have to just let this crop rotation go through. Because if they get to decide what they're doing with it, then it's way worse for us. Oh my lord. So many One Rings. Yep, I understand. So we can use the Boseiju to blow up our opponent's lands as well. That's a thing we're allowed to try and do. Oh lord. What a game. I don't think we're trying to expend our resources to do anything there. I think we just have to untap and draw. Oh, the One Ring. Disruptor Flute though. 3 mana, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is an annoying amount of mana our opponent has. They can fire in response to this Disruptor Flute. But I think we've got a line here. I think we wait and see what they grab at end step with this Eye of Ugin. Well, they didn't grab anything. That is very interesting. We'll let them resolve this One Ring trigger. If we Disruptor Flute here, right now, we still have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. So we can still do everything, right? Let's cast Disruptor Flute. Let's see what action this gets out of our opponent. We're doing this before they have a draw step, so they have less information to work with. So if they go and get some sort of spooky Eldrazi, we can name that Eldrazi. Alright, so we can also blow up their Eye of Ugin before it starts making them mana. Or we can blow up their Ezra's Tower. We can blow up their Planar Nexus. We've got some options available to us here. Right, they've put an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger into their hand. So you've got 3 mana here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you only need 1 more mana for this. So if we name Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger here, or do you want our opponent to play out this Ulamog? That is an interesting proposition, isn't it? That is an interesting proposition. We could name the Wasteland that we know is somewhere in our opponent's deck. That could be a really annoying thing. If they play the Ulamog, we make a 20/20 and win the game. This is 3 mana, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So another land is 10. If we name Kozilek's Command, they can't kill. I think we're saving this Boseiju. Alright, they're drawing some cards with a One Ring. A Cloud Post. Okay. So we've made the Kozilek's Command cost more mana. So it costs 3 more mana to Kozilek's Command for them right now. So if we blow this up, they get 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana. That's the exact mana they need to Kozilek's Command our Marit Lage token. That really annoys me there. Okay. Let's see what they're discarding. A Glacial Chasm. Yeah, that's an annoying one as well. Elvish Spirit Guide. So if we blow up their Cloud Post, that's not very helpful. If we blow up their Planar Nexus, that undercuts a lot of mana. Elvish Spirit Guide into Crop Rot. Yeah. That's not ideal for us. I think we might have had this if we'd have... they had the Spirit Guide and stuff, didn't they? There's a problem. Alright, they're going to target some of our permanents. They're going to target these 2 permanents. Those aren't the permanents I expected them to target. Okay. So they've got 3 mana plus all these spawn tokens. They can exile 20 cards from our library. This is indestructible. Fine. I think our opponent has this game. Goodbye, 20 cards of my library. There's no point trying to block this here. That's not what this game is about now. Do we draw a card and hope to preserve our life total 1 more turn? I think so. We can take a hit from this without dying. But hold on, this is 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So they can just get an Emrakul if they have an Emrakul. But do these lists play Emrakul? I don't think they do. Alright, I'm going to assume they don't play Emrakul. Because I'm pretty sure I've not seen them in the Cloud Post. They just don't need them. Alright, this was not what we required here. We were hoping for a protection spell so that we could play our guy, block this, protect it, and then swing. But now we're just dead to our opponent's Kozilek's Command here. Yep, we go down to 3 cards in library. Combat's command over there. Yeah, the thing that they've had this entire time. Yeah. Oh dear. So the Cloudpost matchup has gone from being a sort of 80-ish% favoured matchup to now being an unfavourable one. I think we got a little bit unfortunate to have the sort of the running 1 rings quite as soon as they were, because they just managed to stall the game out for long enough. Yeah, it was tough. All right, I'm pretty wiped after that one, but 3 more rounds to go. Let's carry on. All right, this hand does not function, so let's send it back. No way towards that combo. Let's send that one back too. Not liking this one either. Let's send it back. Okay. We've got a 4-card hand that pokes a hole in our opponent's hand. Has some fast mana. I think this is better than just trying to dig for that miraculous 3-card hand. So 3 cards have got to go here. Would I like the fast mana? Or would I like stability? I think it's probably stability here, isn't it? Which means we're probably getting rid of Spirit Guide as well. And it's probably the Bayou here. So we lead off on the Urborg and Thoughtseize. That gives us draws to Hexmage to win the game the following turn. Verdant Catacombs, that's not the one. A Brainstorm to hide your things. Okay, just a Daze. And cycling a Troll of Khazad-dûm. Good old Rescownator. Underground CA. A Dark Depths. We are playing the Dark Depths out. Our opponent can wasteland it, we have another one. This means that we can draw our Thespian stage and just win the game. Or attempt it off of a crop rotation using our Verdant Catacomb. Underground Sea pass from our opponent. I guess we'll play our Verdant Catacombs. We can start removing counters, which is a fine thing to do when our opponent doesn't have a clock. And the best way of drawing a piece to combo off of your Dark Depths is to remove like 9 counters off of it. And then all of a sudden you draw the card to make your last 9 turns of clicking irrelevant. I will go and fetch myself a forest here. This way it's not in the void in case our opponent wants it. Right, let's move a counter. It's unlikely that we're going to win by doing this. Crop rotation. That can certainly do a thing for us. This Verdant Catacombs is relatively disposable. A Psychic Frog. That can jump. I'm going to tap this for black mana. And cast a crop rotation, sacrificing my Verdant Catacombs. How do you feel about this one, opponent? Force of Willable. Sure. A Disruptor Flute. We could try and disrupt this Psychic Frog, but it's still going to draw cards and be a pain. So I think we're just going to carry on. There's a Wasteland. Yep, we're going to take some damage. Our opponent's going to draw a card. It's all getting quite horrible. Let's get this Flute going. We've got another Dark Depths. They're going to let this resolve now, I imagine. We could have cast this on our turn to avoid some Wasteland shenanigans. A Lotus Petal. Is that better in play, or is that better in our hand? It's like a mystery thing for our opponent to be fearful of. I think it's better to make them consider the crop rot in our hand. But we're just hitting the fail rate of our own deck again. This is kind of why I like having the 2 Elvish Reclaimers at the moment. I just feel with so much scam around, like the Rescaminator, where it has really efficient ways of interacting with your tutor pieces or your other half in the face of Vampire Hexmage. Sorry, having a bit of brain fog. The fact that they can interact so effectively is definitely requiring you to have more tutors, I think. Just that extra reliability with all the disruption around. Our opponent probably has an answer for this because they've been drawing extra cards. Okay. I'll play a Thespian stage. This can block the Psychic Frog. A Brainstorm. Weird you wouldn't cast that in response to the Sylvan Scrying, unless you already had an answer. A basic island. Well, we have one play available to us. A Stifle. Okay. Well, that was pretty horrible. This looks like pretty much classic Rescaminator, I think. Although the Stifle is unusual. That's more of like a regular scam thing than a Rescaminator thing. So we kind of want Disruptor's Flutes for Wastelands. And we're kind of in this bind that we were in before, where it's very hard to sideboard against what our opponent's bringing. Tamiyo's Safekeeping being a thing that can protect us from wastelands as well means it is better than Reflexes, even though this can counter stuff. Yeah, it's all a bit awkward, isn't it? If our opponent's got Arcana of Cruelty type stuff, then we need these. Although they had the main deck Thoughtseize. Maybe they are just classic scam. And if they're classic scam, what are we looking to board in? It's probably something along these lines. I'm not really sure about the Reflexes here. I think we're going to shave some petals. Fails. Let's try something like this. Kind of into having an Abrupt Decay as well, actually. Just to deal with Frog, to buy us a little bit of extra time. Or to punch through when they've got something spooky that can block. And we need them to not be able to block. Let's try this. Turn 1, Thoughtseize. Turn 2, Disruptor Flute or Sylvan Scrying. This has the tools to win us the game. I think I will keep this one. It's not the blisteringly fast hand, but it's got enough protection in it in a matchup where our opponent has got lots of ways of interacting with us. So let's get a Thoughtseize in before they can brainstorm away. Force of Will, Psychic Frog, Reanimate, Grief. Interesting. If we take the Reanimate, our opponent then has to pitch the Psychic Frog to the Grief. They've got a Wasteland as well. Not a fan of that. Our opponent's hand is pretty good. It's almost like this is the best deck, which is currently about 40% of the meta. Because Wizards of the Coast have made a bit of a boo-boo this time around. Turbo Depths is pretty reasonable against Scam. It has a lot of hands that aren't scammable, which is good. Obviously, our hand now isn't one of those hands. But as a general rule, you can have, if you've got your Thespian stage and Dark Depths in hand, then you don't really have to worry about getting scammed. Okay, so we have an opportunity to get the Disruptor Flute down. I think that is important enough here. Do I want to do this in our turn or in our opponent's turn? Doesn't matter. They might have something like a Spell Pierce, so I'm going to do it in our opponent's upkeep. Or a Force of Negation. Alright, Disruptor Flute, do your thing. Boom, him to Turak, there it was. Sure. So we're going to get a Wasteland, get deployed now, I imagine. Okay, they're Grief pitching the Frog. They're going to take our Scrying or our Spirit Guide. It will tell us a little bit about the sort of player they are. I think the highest upside here is to take the Spirit Guide, but the average best play is to take the Scrying. Or they can take both because they drew a Reanimate. Oh. We're going to take our Urborg out here. So they left us with a mana source and they're trying to destroy our mana. Oh, yikes. Oh, hello, Vexing Bauble. Nice of you to show up at such a good time. Where were you on turn 1? Like, you would have just got the Force of Will out, but then our Disruptor Flute could have done some work. Troll of Khazad-dûm. Undercity Sewers, yeah. Thespian stage. We have the option to draw a card with this Bauble. I don't think we have to do that this turn. An Urborg. I think we play the Hexmage so that we can crack the Bauble this turn. At least get this so it resolves. Or we can crack the Bauble next turn, I suppose. But the Grief could continue beating. We can't block it because of Menace. Cycling on the Troll. They got another Surveil land? They don't. Okay. Don't think we crack the Bauble now. They can hardcast a lot of stuff anyway. We can crack on our turn, still have enough mana to do the things we want. Right, let's get this Disruptor Flute down. Name the Wasteland. And we'll draw a card with this Bauble. A Veil of Summer. That's not the best right now, but we might be able to cast it. We'll basically be discarding 2 cards to draw 1 card. But considering we're looking for one thing, that might not be the worst. Attacking our opponent's life total might stop another creature coming in, and we're not blocking with the Vampire Hexmage, so they're not giving us a way of cycling this Veil yet. Another Disruptor Flute. Alright, let's attack. Like I said, we're not blocking here. It's tough. A Psychic Frog. Disruptor Flute. We're going to name Psychic Frog. Does it matter here? Is a better question. I don't think it does. They can't activate the abilities, but once it's on the stack, it's still going to resolve. Because this only makes it cost 3 more to cast, but this is already on the stack, it's already been cast. I've tried to bait out some sort of interaction on this. So, by naming the Frog, what this also means is that if we get a second creature, we can double block here and only take the 1, but we don't get to cast our spells. Yeah, Our opponent's hand was pretty bananas there, but their entire deck is just all the best cards in Legacy right now. It's pretty hard to beat. We're expecting an emergency banning any day. Well, we're hoping, I suppose. Alright, having a bit of a rough one, let's go to round 4. Okay, this hand is a pretty strong one. It's our friend of the channel, famously plays a lot of ninjas. Let's see if they're on ninjas today. Soporific Springs, yeah. That was in the list. And the Ponder. Okay, so we're Urborg into Thoughtseize. We've got Spirit Guide, Crop Rot if we need that. Our opponent's list tends not to run Wasteland, which I think is actually really good in the Ninjas deck not to run the Wasteland. Well. One of these cards impacts what we're doing. Goodbye, Shoulder's Edict. We do not need to cast a Crop Rotation to win this game. There's a Prismatic Vista. So I imagine we're going to see a Ponder. Oh, maybe we're going to see a creature or something. Psychic Frog. That's quite the creature, isn't it? Our spells here aren't fantastic because of this Force of Will, but we don't really need to cast spells. Okay, we'll play out this Thespian stage. We can Disruptor Flute and see what our opponent wants to do about it. We can stop this Force of Will if we so wish. Okay, so there's a Brainstorm. We've already seen a Shoulder's Edict. We can't really be what's short in our opponent's hand now. We've already seen a Shoulder's Edict, so that's probably what I'd name off of a Disruptor Flute. They can always discard what we name to the Frog anyway. Such is the power of Frog. I'm not expecting this Disruptor Flute to resolve, but it might do its job. Tamiyo, yeah, that's a flyer. This is almost certainly... Well, it might not get counterspelled, but there's a possibility. If this gets counterspelled... Ooh. We know there's a Force of Will over there. Is that better than naming Shoulder's Edict here, though? Let's just name Shoulder's Edict. The list I played the other day from our opponent only had one of these. We could go slower here and Disruptor Flute. They're attacking with both creatures. That's kind of suspicious. It is a suspicious one indeed. Alright, so they're going for the flip on the Tamiyo. What are they going to return here? A Ponder? A Brainstorm? That doesn't beat a 2020. The -1 certainly not going to do enough against the 2020. What was our opponent's plan? An Ornithopter. That is the plan, is it? Yeah, Ornithopter could do a little bit of work here, can't it? I think I will just start crunching through it, though. Not the Boseiju we were hoping for. I will attack our opponent. We goal up the Ornithopter. We don't have a land that can get through here. So there's nothing to crop rotate for. So, do we want to Disruptor Flute? We can Disruptor Flute on the Tamiyo. But that's not really what we need. We don't care about Tamiyo too much. They can return a cantrip. It's only instant or sorcery, so they can't get back the Ornithopter. Sink into Stupor. Do I think our opponent has a Daze here? We've already seen a Force of Will. I guess we can play around both quite easily, though, because we have 2 Crop Rots here. So I guess we go... let's float a black as well, actually. Let's Crop Rot away this Urborg. Let's Crop Rot away this Bayou. Let's give our creature protection from blue. So now they hold back the Frog and jump with the Frog. Yep, and then they get the Stupor back next turn. So we need to draw an untapped mana source. We did draw an untapped mana source. Let's play this. Let's cast the Disruptor Flute. If I've got a Daze here, that'd be pretty savage. So they give their... Oh, they didn't give the Frog flying. So we should just be able to swing through now. Alright, we got there. If they give this flying, then we name the Sink into Stupor. And then we crack through. They have to block with a Frog. And then they've got to try and work something out of what's in the rest of their hand. But they can't cast Shoulder's Edicts. They can't get the other Spring. The fact they've shown us they got a second one there is really important as well, though. So I thought they only had one in their list. So our opponent's got bounce spells. So these things are kind of useful. Our opponent's got some Ornithopters that we might need to push through. So I like the Apostle's Blessing here too. Quick Reflexes does a very similar thing, but better. 20 damage is going to get through blockers. So I think we want the Reflexes here. Although the single colourless cost on the Apostle Blessing is nice. Vexing Bauble stops our opponent counter spells. Our opponent doesn't run the Wastelands. So I don't think these Disruptor Flutes are actually where I want to be. I don't really like the Bojuka Bog here. I think we can probably afford to cut those. Which gives us access to the 3 quick Reflexes. And we could board in a couple of Veils. Or we could board in some Decays. Decays buy us more time. But I think what I'm actually worried about is... Oh, actually... I think our opponent runs Harbinger of the Tides, actually. So let's have a couple of these Abrupt Decays in. If our opponent's not running Wasteland, we can probably trim this Ghost Quarter and get another Abrupt Decay in. I did play my opponent's Ninjas deck the other day. They are one of my patrons, which I am very grateful for. I do love having people support the channel, especially when they're lovely human beings and make me play cool decks like Ninjas. So I'm quite familiar with like the rough direction our opponent's deck is, but there's obviously some tweaks since I played it. This hand belongs in the bin, so let's mulligan. This hand is asking a lot, isn't it? We're asking to resolve these. Okay, okay. This is what I'm here for. We'll keep this. 2 cards got to go. Are we trying to turbo out here? Or are we trying to be... I think we can get rid of Catacombs. No, we get rid of the Bayou here. Because of Harbinger of the Tides. And then we have to decide whether we want a Bauble or we want the Tamiyo Safekeeping. Alternatively, we could bin off the Spirit Guide. But Spirit Guide plus Tamiyo Safekeeping is quite nice to have access to. I think if we were feeling really bold, we could bin off the Verdant Catacombs, and that feels a bit like silly talk. Tamiyo Safekeeping isn't really where I want to be, I don't think. Not right now, at least. I think I'm going to bin off the Safekeeping. Reason being is that Safekeeping only really works against the Sink into Stupor. Our opponent might only have 2 of those, and that's a 3 mana spell. So that's quite telegraphed. Preordain. Cool. Ornithopter. Oh, we could have stopped it with the Bauble. If only we were going first. So I think the play here is the Thespian stage, because we find another piece of fast mana that isn't Lotus Petal. We can go, but we could also play this Vexing Bauble now, which makes the Sylvan Scrying way easier to resolve. Okay, so our opponent doesn't have access to Force of Will or Daze now. Unless they're hard casting them, which I don't think our opponent wants to do. So we might be getting hit by some ninja this turn. No. Psychic Frog. Well, that's kind of like a ninja. But without having to go through the hoops of ninjutsuing in. It just does it anyway. So what do we want here? If we want to Thoughtseize this turn, how important is that? So if we use this Thespian stage and this Spirit Guide to Sylvan Scrying for an Urborg, we play the Urborg now and we Thoughtseize. Next turn we try and go. That seems reasonable. Our opponent doesn't know the top card of their deck here. I think I like this plan. Get the Urborg. Play the Urborg. Thoughtseize the opponent. Next turn we can make a 20/20. Ponder, Psychic Frog, Yuriko. What is worse for us? Yuriko or the Ponder? I think it's the Ponder. I just don't want them to be able to dig into finding the thing that actually wins the game for them by killing our guy. I think that's a safe choice. Undercity Sewers, milling a polluted tails. That's just more food for the frog, so it can jump more. Right, so the Yuriko is going to drop in. The thing about the Yuriko compared to the Ponder is we see the card that comes off the Yuriko. So we know to play around it if it's something that impacts us. Right, they discarded a bonus Yuriko. So we know both the cards in our opponent's hand right now. So we're working with perfect information, and we'll continue to get perfect information because of the Yuriko. Well, they get one card from the frog, so not quite perfect information, and an underground sea. And they can't cast the Ornithopter because of the Bauble. Well, they can, but it gets countered. So now they're going to have to use a Psychic Frog to jump here. But that's not going to be enough because we're going to Sylvan Scrying and just get the Sejiri Steppe to push through it. So the idea here is that we can just have our opponent tap out for this Psychic Frog and not have remove. Well, they're not going to tap out. There's a problem. What is our opponent's option here? So there's a frog. We knew that was coming. Our opponent's got 2 mystery cards in hand. Okay, they're playing another card out. Another frog. Okay, so they're not attacking here. Because we'll just gobble it up with our Dark Depths. But unfortunately for them, we've got the solution in hand. As long as we click on the correct Dark Depths here. Alright. Oh wait, no, we don't have the mana for the Sylvan Scrying yet, do we? Whoops. So we attack here. We gobble up a frog. We have to hold a frog back on blocks. Do we hold this back on blocks and hope that they can don't draw the thing? How many frogs are they willing to throw into the blender of Marit Lage? Get 3 more looks if they attack with everything. They can't attack with everything unless they're really confident. I can attack. They bin off 3 cards. They lose a frog. They attack back, draw 3 cards. If we hold back, they only draw 2 cards, and then we kill them the next turn. I think we just hold back here. Yes, Disruptor Flute was good to stop the frog before, but I don't think that's the place we want to be. Okay, we've got to dodge a few cards from our opponent. Ugh. This is awkward. We needed another mana this turn. Oh, my brain is pretty much falling out my face right now. I'm hanging a little bit here. Alright, what is this Prismatic Vista going to do? Alright, they're holding one back here. Ooh, they're attacking with everything. That's terrifying. I guess we block the biggest one. This means they're probably going to ninja in a guy. And then reset the frog. That works. Well, they got another frog. I think that's a pretty interesting play to go for that extra card on the hit. Unless you have a way of dealing with our guy. But if you had a way of dealing with the guy, you just deal with the guy, right? And then you attack and get the extra card. I don't know what was in our opponent's hand, to be fair. Is this a Murktide? Feels like a Murktide. There it is. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. I hope it's not a Shoulder's Edict. Let's crack this. Let's hope this isn't a Hardcast Daze. It was. Let's play the step. Alright, we got the game. Alright. Yeah, Psychic Frogs are scary. They do it all. They slice, they dice, they jump to block Marit Lage, they draw a million cards, they beat you for like 5 a turn. But we managed to get that one, and we're 4 rounds in, and we're 1 and 3. So let's play the final round and put this one to bed. This hand requires us to draw another piece. I think on a 7 we can't keep a hand. We definitely can't keep a hand that looks like this either. This, on the other hand, I will play. 2 of these cards have got to go. I don't think we're in double crop rotation land here. That means are we keeping the Hexmage here? We could Hexmage into Hexmage. Sorry, we could Black Source into Black Source, and then we can Hexmage Depths the turn after. So that's a turn 3. That is the quickest route here. But that would involve putting back this crop rotation. I think I can live with that. So we can lead off with a Verdant Catacombs. The downside of doing this is if our opponent's an all-in reanimation deck or graveyard-based combo deck, we can't interact with like a turn 1 Bojuka Bog. But I think we just want to secure the most effective way that we can win the game, which is making a turn 3 Marit Lage. Now, we could have left off on Dark Depths, and if we draw an Urborg, then we get a turn 2 Hexmage, but then that opens up to a whole bunch of other problems. We want this card to be the last out of our hand when our opponent could be a Wasteland deck. Once we get more of... Oh, wow. Our opponent's on Ruin Crab. Alright. I'm sold. I love the little crab. Tamiyo's Safekeeping. That is not an unpleasant card to have here. Because we have another route to the combo, I am okay to just jam this Hexmage. Because this gives us Tamiyo's Safekeeping next turn. So if all goes well, we can make it next turn with Safekeeping back up around days. If this gets countered, then we're just a couple of turns behind doing this. And our opponent's pressure is going to be a different one. Alright, we got a Force of Will out of it. That's a-okay with me. I don't think our opponent's going to have Wastelands. I wonder if our opponent's doing some kind of White of the Reliquary combo as well. Because there is a selection of cards you can play that lets you pull all the lands out of your deck in a single turn. Which is obviously pretty good with Ruin Crabs. But our opponent's got main deck Surgical Extractions because they're a mill deck. No more Vampire Hexmage for us, but we do have the other half of our combo. That's the reason why we played it out like that. taking a good old look at our deck, as is their right. A brainstorm. Let's get some cards milled. Disruptor Flute. If they mill a Dark Depths and Surge Extract it, then we're in trouble. But if they mill a Thespian stage and Surge Extract it, we're also in trouble. I think we're just playing the Thespian stage here and holding up a Disruptor Flute and Tamiyo's Safekeeping. What on earth do I Disruptor Flute against the Ruined Grab Mill deck? Can't say I'm particularly familiar with what's going on in our opponent's deck. Fractured Sanity. What's that one do? Your opponent mills 14 cards. What's the one that the mills equal to the number of... Alright, there's a Dark Depths in the graveyard. What's that one that mills equal to... Oh, Plains. Okay, so we're going to be naming Swords to Plowshares, is what you're telling me. There's a card that mills equal to like a certain mana value, which would do a lot of work against our deck. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. That is the one I was thinking of. Does this mill our entire deck, I wonder? I don't think it does. That took us down to 10 cards. That is a little bit concerning, isn't it? How much does Fractured Sanity do? That's 14 cards. Okay. Well, at least I know what the card's called now. Let's name another one of those. We've kind of got the plow covered already. Not immediately, unfortunately. Maybe this is the coward's way out of trying to name the Hideous Laughter. We're supposed to just name the plow. No land, drop 3 cards in our opponent's hand. Right, I'm going to take an extra draw step here to play around the plow. Let's hope that doesn't cost me. But they didn't just straight up win the game last turn. Maybe they can't straight up win the game this turn. Alright, here goes the thing that we do. We've got a Tamiyo Safekeeping around days. Let's Safekeeping this. They have the Force. What's in our exile pile? 1 Dark Depths. 2 Dark Depths. And there's 1 Dark Depths in our graveyard. 2 Dark Depths in our graveyard. Okay, so we can't win the game really now. Yeah, we should just name the plow and stop being a coward. Okay. What do we want here? Protection from our opponent's removal spells. That seems good. Things that stop our opponent targeting us with mill isn't the worst either. Vexing Bauble stops some of our opponent's scary things too. I don't really care about Bojuka Bog here. I don't believe this is going to be a Ghost Core matchup either. This is a reasonable amount of stuff to put in. I don't think we need any more than that. Does our opponent run in the Snaring Bridge? That is an interesting question, because it's certainly the sort of thing they could have. Maybe I'll cut a couple of petals for decays. That gives us 3 answers to the bridge. The fact that we don't have green mana makes me want to throw this one back, because it means we can't actually dig for the combo with like any of our tutors. What is this? Alright. Yeah, we'll keep this one. Get rid of the spare Urborg. Do I want this Abrupt Decay? If our opponent is playing Harbinger of the Tides, we're going to want this. I think that means the Veil's got to go here. Yikes. They're not going to accelerate out their Harbinger of the Tides though, so we don't need to play out this Catacombs and get our forest straight away. Are we going to get hit by an Archive Trap? It's been a hot minute since I've been hit by one of those. Yeah, the fact that Tasha's Hideous Laughter hits us for like, what, 40 cards is no joke, that's for sure. Just going to get a basic forest. Scrying. Going to hit with an Archive Trap now. We're getting a Force of Will. Pitching a Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Sure. A Ponder. Right, we're not taking like little incremental bits from the crab. I'm really surprised our opponent got rid of the Tasha's Hideous Laughter when that is like a big knockout punch for a lot of what we're doing. A little bit awkward to see you right now. Little Vexing Bauble. I think we need to play out our Bayou so that we can blow up a Harbinger of the Tides if it appears. If we had a basic Swamp, then I'd just obviously let the Harbinger hit, play the Dark Depths. It comes in with no counters because of the Harbinger, then we blow up the Harbinger and make a 20/20. That is what I would like to do. But I think, given the fact that we don't have access to a Swamp, we can't do that. I don't think we're cracking this Bauble. case we need to cast some sort of tutor. Another Bauble. Alright, we'll play this one out. We can at least draw a card off of one of them now. Am I playing out this Dark Depths? I think I am. A Brainstorm, sure. Our opponent's end step, we can crack a Bauble. A Brain Freeze. Okay. Not really what I was expecting to see there. Can't imagine they're going to have huge amounts of Storm. There's a Plains. The Plains with a big mountain on the art. Serenity. I would rather have 2 cards than waste this Abrupt Decay on a Serenity. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. A Crop Rotation, you say? That is an interesting one. I will cast this now. Our own Urborg. Curse you, Urborg. Okay, Crop Rotation. What do we find with you? I would like to find a basic Swamp, I guess. So now we don't have to care about... yeah, we don't have to care about leaving up stuff for Harbinger of the Tides anymore. Let's draw a card. A Crop Rotation. Okay, so our plan now is our opponent casts Harbinger of the Tides. That is our... Like, we can draw a Hexmage as well. But where's that Harbinger of the Tides opponent? Get that in there. A Brainstorm, you say? They haven't taken out our Sejiri Steppe yet. This is also a build where if we had a Shifting Woodlands, which was the other build I was trying, we would be able to just go and get that and be able to go off, and that would be really nice. A Ponder, sure. Because we could sack the Dark Depths for Woodlands and then immediately copy it. Because the Woodlands will come in untapped, and we have the 4 mana to do it. Because of this Lotus Petal. I'll be honest with you all, I was hoping for a relatively quick league because I don't feel very well. And it's been an absolute mammoth run. We're about 3 hours into recording now, which is about 50% longer than I would normally expect a Turbo Depths league to take to record. So I am hanging a fair bit. But there's been some interesting gameplay and stuff going on, so I hope you've been enjoying that. A Fractured Sanity, you say? So our opponent is just trying to mill a Hexmage and then exile it at this point. Alright. It's time to remove ice counters. Veil of Summer. Now that is certainly a Magic the Gathering card, isn't it? I will play out this Lotus Petal. I will pass the turn. Maybe our opponent isn't running Harbinger of the Tide. It just seems like a really good thing you can do in a blue deck in your sideboard. Especially in a deck that wants to just sort of have this win condition that doesn't win the game until it wins the game. Does that make sense? As is Mill. Elvish Spirit Guide. Is that better as an attacker, or do we just want to funnel more mana into a Dark Depths? I think we're going to leave it in our hand. Visions of Beyond. It only draws 1, because we have 18 cards in our graveyard and 29 in our library. And this is... a library has to have 20 or less? No, so a graveyard has 20 or more. Okay, there you go. So, we are 2 cards shy of giving them what they want. Brain Freeze. Do I want to get milled here? Not really. But I think we just have to let this happen. So the danger is if they get a Hexmage and they extract it. This puts us on the very slow boat to Dark Depths Town. Looks like that's what's happening. Veil of Summer does not protect us from this. Yep, there it is. So we are on the removing counters manually side of Dark Depths. It's pretty miserable. We could cycle this Veil of Summer, but what for? Maybe I want to play this Spirit Guide and beat down. What a world. Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Alright. That was Spirit Guide. It's on you now, buddy. Or buddyette. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Well, if this resolves, we lose the game, so let's cast that Veil of Summer. Oh, it's each opponent exiles the top cards. Alright. Yeah. Absolutely jammed up there. Oh, Lord. That felt horrible. Wasn't really expecting the mill matchup to go that way. I think we should have just named the Swords to Plowshares with the Disruptor Flute in game 1. But I am quite glad to be done with this league today because I am exhausted. Alright, the deck did not perform well today, but let's have a little quick breakdown as to why that may be the case. There were certainly a few instances of us getting unlucky, like where our opponent had the Colossal Sky Turtle as like the last card in their hand, and the last time they needed it. There was a couple of little moments like that, but people are playing these cards in their decks to draw, right? Sure, your opponent's not always going to draw their 1-ofs or their 2-ofs or whatever, but sometimes they will, and they are in their deck, and you can't be annoyed about it, but you have to take that into account when you're thinking about how the matchup feels and how often that is going to be the case. But what I will say about this particular build is it's having some similar issues to what I faced before, which is when I played the previous Vexing Bauble list, the Vexing Baubles don't feel that good sometimes. Like, there are matchups where Vexing Bauble is incredible. So, Oops All Spells, for example. I think Vexing Bauble as a spell against some combo decks is just great. I think Vexing Bauble is better than Collector Roof in a lot of those matchups, because Vexing Bauble only requires 1 mana, so you can always play it on your turn 1. And it's colorless mana as well, unlike Collector Roof. And you don't need the fast mana to put it out there. It's just great. But even in the matchups where it can look good against like Scam and stuff, because they got free spells, sometimes it still doesn't do anything. I think the ceiling on Vexing Bauble can be quite high, but the floor can also be quite low. So I think I would rather have this as a sideboard option, is what I've come to decide from this one. I would rather have Vexing Bauble in my sideboard than in the main deck. Disruptor Flute definitely looked good to me. I think we didn't play it optimally. But then again, I can't even breathe optimally right now, so don't be too harsh on me for that one. But I did like what Disruptor Flute added. There is definitely an issue with having a 2-mana way of dealing with Wasteland as opposed to a 1-mana way of dealing with Wasteland, which is something to note, especially since turn 2 is ideally your go turn to like make a Marit Lage. That is kind of like the dream. So the Disruptor Flute isn't the most useful in those situations. But like I have some of these that I'm in the process of ordering. I don't get to play Paper Magic as often as I like, so I haven't got any tournaments. I haven't been super quick on getting the new cards yet. But I think this is definitely a card you want in your card pool. Quite on the numbers of where we want this, I don't know. But I like the option of having this for sure. Tamiyo Safekeeping. Again, 1 mana is not 0 mana, right? I think Not of This World is too good as a protection piece for what we're doing to be running Vexing Bauble and then having to run a worse card because of it. In my big guide to playing Turbo Depths, I extensively talk about the difference between holding up 1 mana for your combo turn and not. And that can be 1 or 2 turns of Magic the Gathering. And let's say you wait a turn so you can hold this up. But then your opponent wastelands you or does something else that interacts with you. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I need to wait another turn. And you're just piling on extra turns. And we are a linear combo deck. If a lot of decks, given enough time, can assemble something to get around us. Now, we can also assemble stuff to navigate through a lot of things. But if you've watched previous videos of mine against, like, let's say a Death and Taxes deck, you get to a few turns in the game and then you're always, okay, if I can just answer this one thing they have, then I can beat them. And then they play another one. You're, okay, I can just answer this one. And I had one game where this went back and forth for about 6 turns of us both, like, having an answer to the opponent's thing. So them having an answer to my Marit Lage combo, me having an answer to their answer. And this happened for several turns in a row until eventually they just stacked more stuff up. Because eventually there comes a point where it's very difficult to get through it. And they're also, like, nicking you for damage the whole time as well. Because we're doing this one thing. We're not applying pressure while disrupting. We're trying to achieve our thing. So that is definitely a little bit of a concern. I think the deck obviously didn't look very impressive today. We had a horrible record, which is 2 weeks in a row trying different, like, 4 bauble lists. And I'm not convinced on 4 baubles. I think you could definitely play a league or even a challenge where it would look great. But I think you have to draw it at the right time, have the right matchups, your opponent to have the right hand for it to do work against. And I just don't think that we need to be, like, dropping key pieces out of our deck and slowing ourselves down, because that's what we're doing here. We're replacing a 1 mana interaction for a 2 mana interaction, a 0 mana interaction for a 1 mana interaction. And Legacy isn't getting slower now, it's getting faster. So I don't necessarily like slowing ourselves down here, but I do like what the Disruptor Flute adds. Right, if you want some more thoughts about this, please subscribe to my Patreon. It helps me a lot. It's a thing that helps me pay my bills, which I appreciate everyone who supports me on there. And I do a big guide to Turbo Depths, which I update every month. So there's going to be an update this month where I'm going to be talking heavily about Disruptor Flutes, Vexing Baubles, Tamiyo, Safekeeping, all the sort of stuff that you're seeing here. And if you want to look at where I'm more at with my builds at the moment, I will post a link to a previous video I did that felt really good with the Shifting Woodland in. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbo Depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbo Depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.